Our guest today is Trent Spafford, and he is sitting here in studio with me. Trent, welcome to the show. Good to have you here with us.
Hey, thanks, Mark, for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
You were sharing some things with me about the water, and as you know, I'm no the condition or poor water quality in our society. I'm no stranger to that. You know, I spent some time in the industry myself many years back. And I was quite dismayed at that time to discover that the water coming out of our tap, that potable water supply that we draw on, isn't as good as we'd hoped that it would be. And you have some extensive research that you've done on water quality here in the state of Utah. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to have you share this with our listening audience because I think they have a right to know and they have a right to do something about it. So tell us a little bit about what you know, how you go about this research, where you derive it, and what it means to us, if you would.
Well, yeah, so as you were talking about hoping that we get snow this weekend for the ski industry, a lot of people have the belief and the misunderstanding that, you know, the water that we get from into our home is the water that just melted from the previous spring. Uh-huh. And a very small percentage of Utah's water is actually from the surface, which would be a lake or a river. Only about 5 to 7% is our estimation. The rest of it. When
you say our estimation, where do those? Because I got some analyticals out there listening. Where are those statistics coming from, if I may ask?
Water Quality Association of America, EPA,
okay,
and our own communities.
Okay.
So, a very small percentage. The majority of the water comes from the groundwater. So, the water you drink out of a faucet today may have fallen from the cloud 50 to 100 years ago. So as we do research with people,
really?
One of the questions we ask is, do you think water is going to get better or worse or stay about the same in the next 5 years? And people say, oh, it'll get better or get worse. But all the research is pointing right now that it is going to get much, much worse before it ever gets better because the contaminants that are in the supply or in the soil and in the groundwater that were polluted 50 years ago is just now hitting our water supplies.
Now, that is surprising if that's the case. So what we're seeing in the snowpack is just replenishing that water supply that's been there for many, many years.
That's right.
Okay. So what we see fall this season, we're not drinking next summer.
That's
what
right.
I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, you don't ski on the snow and drink it next spring.
No kidding.
Absolutely not.
Interesting. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about let me give you an example of this. I lived in Nevada for 7 years with my family. And the water coming out of the tap in Clark County, Nevada, Las Vegas, if you prefer, Henderson, it tastes horrible. I mean, it's just ugly.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I would come up here and visit my in-laws, and the water coming out of the taps tasted so cold and fresh and great, and it didn't seem to have the same volume of sediment in it. So I would, even though I bought bottled water, I would bring up gallons, empty jugs, and I'd fill it up and take it back home because I thought it was so good, only to discover a few years later that the water, according to the EPA in Clark County, Nevada, was better than the water coming out of the tap of West Jordan, Utah.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Is that true?
That is true. And, quality is kind of subjective. There's, in one area of all the research and the water testing that we've done in the state, extensive testing and research here in the Salt Lake County and Utah County, one area could be very, very different just a few miles away from another area. The water quality, the well system, there are many factors to the quality of water. But here's the thing. Taste does not dictate quality. And that's another misnomer that Utahns have is, oh, we live in the pristine mountains of Utah, and they look up at the beautiful snowpack, and they turn on the water, and they go, that tastes good. But in fact, we have some of the worst water in the nation.
Been guilty of it, yeah.
So,
hold on. What did you just say? We have some of the what?
According to a lot of the documents that we've seen, research, news articles, that Utah, Salt Lake County, has some of the worst water in the country.
Okay,
That's right.
Now you got to prove that to me.
Well, for instance, there was an article that most people didn't even see or ever even was on their radar screen. Back in December 20th, in the Salt Lake Tribune of 2010, the Tribune published an article, and it was about chromium-6. So chromium-6 was the famous chemical that made Erin Brockovich so popular.
I remember this article now that you mention it.
Yeah.
And what was the source of this then that the Tribune derived that from? Was this an Associated Press article?
It was.
Okay.
And the Environmental Working Group called EWG, they went to 35 cities all across the country, and they wanted to test for chromium-6, which is a hexavalent chemical, which is from many different industries that is emitted into the environment. They tested 35 cities across the U.S. The worst one was in Oklahoma, and they tested out at about 12.9 parts per million. In Salt Lake City, we tested out at 0.3 parts per million. So we ranked number 11 out of 35. So number 1 is the worst, not the best. So we ranked number 11.
Wow.
Now, let's put that in perspective.
Yes.
That's 5 times higher than what is being considered safe in California. Here's safe. We're 5 times higher than what is even being considered safe
those
in
Californians
California.
don't know anything, though, right? Now, tell me this. So how many times higher is that? Erin Brockovich won this lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, in relationship to this very contaminant, how many times higher is that than the contaminant levels they were dealing with in that lawsuit? Do you know?
It's lower.
It's lower.
It's lower.
Okay, so we are lower than that.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean it's necessarily a good thing. What is this doing to us?
Well, it causes cancer. It causes neurological disorders, skin disorders. It causes brain tumors. There are many, many symptoms of chromium-6. And so
Could that have anything to do with multiple sclerosis? I mean, I've been wondering why we have the highest level per capita of MS in the country. And you got to wonder sometimes, is it the air we're breathing? Is it the water we're drinking? What is this? It leads to these various ailments. What else is in the water? Because I know from what you indicated to me in our conversation, there's a lot more than this we're dealing with.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it's the unknown factors, too. What's so scary about this, Mark, is that there are tens of thousands of different chemicals used in the United States. And the combination of new chemicals, when they mix, create new chemicals. We don't even know what they are. So there's actually more concern about what we don't know than what we know.
I was afraid you were going to say that. Okay.
In fact, the EPA has stated with over 60,000 chemicals used in the U.S., and I quote, only 91 contaminants are regulated by the Safe Drinking Water Act. Only 91. So we know how to test and quantify and recognize and test 91 out of over 60,000 of these.
How come no one out there, as far as elected officials are concerned, are talking to us about this and warning us about this?
There are a few. Ralph Nader, of course, being one of them. Mm-hmm. He wrote an article years ago that said of all the research he did, out of 60,000 water treatment plants, only 5 actually used an activated carbon filter that would put that water supply into compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Interesting. Now, to qualify this, he's not an elected official. However, he certainly is an advocate for the American people.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the other statistics you have. What about, I've heard a lot about fluoride in our water, and there are people that have conflicting views. Obviously, there are conflicting views on fluoride, but I other than helping your teeth, I'm hearing that there's a lot of negatives to fluoride entering the human body. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we could take a whole hour just on this one subject. It's something that I've really become passionate about. And our goal is to gather enough research and data and take it to the city council members and provide them the information and real viable research so that somebody can turn that tap off. Just turn the valve off so we no longer inject it into our water supplies. Last election, the latest large city to ban fluoride was Wisconsin, a city in Wisconsin. And I've got that information here. We'll talk about it in just a minute. But they banned the fluoride. And so there's 72 communities in the United States that were once fluoridated that have turned it off. It's not a law. 72.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Since 2010.
Oh, just in the last couple of years then.
That's right.
Okay, what is bad about fluoride for the human body? Why should, and is there enough in the water to be concerned about?
That's a good question. We have found that 1 8-ounce glass of water contains, on average, about a 1/4 gram of sodium fluoride. And a lot of people think that the fluoride in the water is different from, say, the fluoride in toothpaste. It's the same type of fluoride. It comes from the same sources.
Isn't fluoride a byproduct of the steel industry or something like that, as I recall?
It's an industrial waste product.
It's an industrial waste. Oh, that's great. So we're drinking this industrial waste is what we're drinking. Yeah.
Well, and you can go to h2oresearch.org, and there's a lot of information on our website. Just go there and look at the findings page, and you can do your own research on this. Don't take my word for it. But the logic of this is if an 8-ounce glass of water, 1 8-ounce glass of water has a 1/4 gram of fluoride, on the warning label of toothpaste, it says if you ingest more than a pea size of fluoridated toothpaste, to call poison control immediately. And 1 pea size of fluoridated toothpaste has a 1/4 gram. So do the math. 1 8-ounce glass of water, 1/4 gram, 1 pea size of fluoridated toothpaste, call poison control immediately.
So if we ingest a glass of potable water from our municipality,
which is fluoridated,
we should be calling poison control according to their instructions.
If it's fluoridated.
If it's fluoridated.
Yes.
Well, that's crazy.
And I can tell you that fluoride is no different than forced medication. Like the city is going to force you to take a pill, and they're going to show up at your door, and they're going to say, did you take your pill today? And if you didn't, they're going to open your mouth and shove it down your throat. It is forced medication.
You just gave a visual that is going to resonate with many of our listeners. First caller is Henry. Henry, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, just 2 things I'd like to relate with what Trent's done in terms of his research. One deals with that big open hole there just west of you guys at the studio.
Let me guess. Let me struggle for the name on that one. Kennecott, yeah.
There you go. It was about 8-9 years ago. There was a gentleman that had purchased a piece of property out there, and there was no municipal water supply, so he proposed to drill a well.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. The county approved it because he was grandfathered in. Well, Kennecott Copper came knocking at the door, and they said, no, you can't drill here. You're too close to our mine. And the guy's like, no, I've tested it. It's okay. Kennecott said there's 2 water aquifers out there in that area. The one that he was looking at, that he wanted to drill into, was below the one that Kennecott already knows is contaminated by the mine contamination. There's a lower aquifer that West Jordan Municipal Water Supply currently draws off of. Now, in a meeting with city officials and these Kennecott officials, which I attended, the Kennecott officials were telling this gentleman that he could not drill a well. For one reason, drilling through the contaminated down to the fresh water, he would probably contaminate the other water supply. But the bigger concern that they expressed was, they said that within probably 10 to 15 years anyway, probably in the 2020 to 2025 time frame, West Jordan City was going to have to shut down those pumps because as they're drawing in the water, they're actually pulling the contaminated water into the fresh water, and they're tracking the movement of those contaminants, and they have already made it aware to West Jordan City that they're going to run out of fresh water to use because of the known contaminants that are in the water, because those huge pumps are drawing it towards their pumps.
So we got a big problem heading our way. Trent, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, actually, it's very interesting. I've done testing in Magna. There's total dissolved solids, which is anything that water was once a solid that dissolved into the water. Test in the 1900s, 1800s part per million. 500 is the maximum contaminant level regulated by the EPA and is considered safe in America. 500 parts. And in Magna, which is kind of right downstream, we are well over 500. In fact, in Riverton, where I live, the water comes in at over 720 parts per million. And
really? Total dissolved solids?
Out of a million parts, that's how many dissolved solids there are. Now, there's some nature in there. There's man-made. There's anything that was at one time a solid that dissolved into the water is total dissolved solids. So that's the research that we're doing. We are tracking where these areas are and educating people as to what is going on. And people don't know what they don't know. And that's the focus of our research firm. We educate people.
Well, worse yet is people are drinking what they don't know.
They're drinking what. See, that gentleman was refused a drill permit after Kennecott came in and basically told the city officials, no, you cannot give this guy a well permit. We already know the problem out there, and we don't want him drilling a well.
Kennecott, but Hercules, there was an article that appeared in the Salt Lake Trib, and it was written by Jim Wolfe, and they found toxic rocket fuel contaminants, rocket fuel, near Magna from Hercules, and they actually found these levels were very high, and they tried to pump out thousands, and actually, I think it was around 50,000 gallons of water to purge it. And it did just what this gentleman is saying. It actually pulled more toxins into the water. As the water came out, it flowed even faster. So there's way more than just Kennecott that I've seen. I could tell you horror stories about that just alone. But Hercules, I used to live in Bluffdale, right by the Jordan River, and they built a brand new subdivision. And the part of the developer donated to the LDS Church a big parcel of land. So the church went in there. They started to build a new stake center, and this was right across the street from me, right next to the Jordan River. And as they started to excavate for the foundation, they found over 5,000 tires that had been buried with all kinds of machine parts, with exhaust systems, motor parts. It cost the LDS Church over $250,000 to dispose of that. It was pollution, and it was just buried there, and it was donated.
Obviously non-authorized.
Non-authorized.
That's just scary. It makes you wonder what's underneath.
And that happens all over the place. We just don't know.
I buy that. Hey, listen.
And it was buried right there next to the river, which is the scary part. When I was drilling in those third world countries, we could not drill a well within 100 feet, 100 to 150 feet of an open latrine, because they knew we already had the data that would say if we're drilling that close, the possible contaminants in the water were already there. So we had to ensure that where we drilled was away from any kind of latrine or any kind of dump site, so that we could have the best possibility to find water without the bacterial contamination that would cause people to be sick.
Henry, fascinating call. Thank you for sharing with us. We got to pick up some more here real quick, but good stuff. Again, thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let's go to Fred. Fred, you're on the line with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, that was a perfect segue. The contaminant from Hercules is perchlorate, and that's actually got a plume in the aquifer. One of the past fellow board members did that for a living. You probably knew him, Lyle Ford. He did that for a living, checking the contaminants. And that plume of perchlorate has actually migrated down now to one of the most pristine water sources for people in the valley, and that's the one on 5th East and 8th South.
So, Fred, you sound like you know what you're talking about. Give us a little idea. What's your background?
Well, I'm a retired biologist, but I've been on 2 water boards, and I work with Dr. Robert Oakey on endocrine disruptors in the water, which is atrazine and ethanol estradiol and all the other fun things that are in there. But anyway, I wanted to get back to this fluoride thing. It's actually criminal in that if you were to be one of the people who produce that, like when you smelt bauxite to make aluminum, or you were part of Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill or ConAgra, and you make phosphate fertilizer, hydrofluorosilicic acid is one of the byproducts. Well, in the process of making that, when Mike Leavitt was governor of Utah, one of his chief, and this is my opinion, which I'm entitled to, there's my disclaimer, that he, with his contributions to his election, was from many people from Alcoa and also from Archer Daniel Midland. And so when you have that stuff, you can't even have hazmat come and get that stuff. It has to be over 200 or 2,000 yards from a water source.
Okay, you and Trent are making your point here. So what in the world is this stuff doing in our water?
Well, I was just going to get to that. They went to Mike and Leavitt, and they said, well, look, it costs us millions of dollars to dispose of this stuff because we can't handle it. And so he said, look, we've got a thing, we've learned that maybe fluoride And I say maybe because I was on the radio with Dr. Mark Flack on this issue many years ago with Jim Baxter and some others on your radio. I was a guest host down there, believe it or not.
Well, good to have you back, and it's perfect timing. So fill us in.
Okay, well, anyway, he asked if they could put that in the water, being a benefit for the dental caries and so on. And Mike said yes, and I can prove this.
Well, then what in the world is it doing to our stomachs and body, Trent? What is this doing to us?
Well, there's a lot of research now that shows that it increases bone fractures, 41% increase of dental fluorosis. A lot of people say, oh, fluoride is great for the poor people because they don't have a choice. They don't have access to good dental care. But actually, it's making our teeth worse.
That's right.
An increase of dental fluorosis from 10% in 1950 of children between 12 to 15, 10% of kids had fluorosis. And that is where your teeth go brown. They have staining, and I've seen people with this.
And it pirates the calcium from the bones, too.
Well, and what's interesting is now it's at over 41%. It actually makes our teeth worse. Now, this might sound alarming. This is real data, real viable research, but the teeth are the canary in the coal mine. What's happening when we ingest it systemically to our bones internally that we never see? So it is now also associated with reduction of IQ in children. There are over 40 different valid research studies that show that it actually lowers the IQ.
Where are these studies coming from? Universities? Are they coming from federal agencies, state agencies? All the above.
All over the place.
May I inject right here? Dr. Judge, who's a research chemist in Arizona State, I worked with him. He has proven that it does deteriorate and actually kill, in some instances, 66 of our natural enzymes in our body.
This is mind-boggling to me.
Well, let me just give you a couple other things, and then I'll get off of here. This is like your guest said. This is a 10-hour show.
It really is. We could talk for hours just on this one subject.
Yeah, but I'm getting that. That's coming through loud and clear. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Let me give you a couple imperatives, and then I'll shut up and get off. Anyway, they put that in, and you know what the treatment is? If one of the workers up there, and they have to have special training to work the pumps at the genesis point, putting that in the water. If it gets and splashes out on them, this is only 25% concentration. You know what the treatment is?
No.
A rapid injection of calcium, because it will go right through the skin to the bone and eat a hole right through it.
Yep. There are actually filters now that you can get that are made from cow bone. They take livestock after they're deboned and everything, and they take the calcium in the bones, they crush it, and you can actually take your water, put it through a filter that's literal cow bone, and it absorbs into that, so it's kind of the sacrificial lamb of a filter, so it doesn't affect you.
Yes, fluoride is the most promiscuous, aggressive negative ion on the whole periodic table, if you look at it on there with the halogens. Anyway, two other imperatives, and then I'll shut up. If you were to take the genesis point of that water at the canyon, put it in a pipe, don't add anything to it, and don't take anything out of it, and take it straight to the treatment plant down on, 32nd South, 9th West down there, you know you can't discharge it? You know why?
No.
It flies in the face of the EPA discharge permit regulations because it's a contaminant in the environment.
Unbelievable what I'm learning here today. I got to tell you, Fred, your call is timely. I can't thank you. I'm glad you were listening. And we're back. You're listening to the Max Zone Show. I'm Mark, your host. Great to have you with us. This is K-Talk Radio, AM 630, here along the Wasatch Front in the great state of Utah. We've got Trent Spafford in studio with us. If you just tuned in, folks, you've been missing out. This is informative. Trent is the founder of H2OResearch.org, and we're learning about what's wrong with our water. And let me tell you, we've definitely had some fascinating calls come in on this subject as well. Trent, you wanted to share with us some other information, and we're going to go to some additional calls. Go ahead.
Yeah. So fluoride. We've been talking about, that's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there is so much about that. Again, we could talk for hours.
Well, what about chlorine? What about chlorine?
That's what I was just going to mention. There's chlorine. They've proven now in all kinds of scientific research that chlorine does, in fact, increase rates of cancer, colon cancer. U.S. News and World Report did an article a little while ago that said drinking chlorinated water doubles the risk of bladder cancer, doubles it. There's research from all over the place that says increased rates of heart disease and arteriosclerosis or arterial sclerosis. All kinds of research that show that, again, a compounding effect. If there's anything organic in the water, and the reason they add chlorine is to kill organics, biologicals, that kind of stuff, the chlorine reacts with organic matter to create Tri-halo-methane, which is a known carcinogen, which absorbs through the skin. You inhale chlorine in a shower. In fact, the same article out of U.S. News and World Report warned people about taking long showers, and that if they did, that you should not take a bath or a shower in an encapsulated bathroom, meaning there's no vent, there's no crack in the window, there's no door that's open. And people do that all the time.
Absolutely. You
can actually, the chlorine is evaporative, so when it hits the air, it evaporates into the air, and you can be breathing 10 to 100 times more chlorine byproduct in the air than what's in the water because it builds up. It's like an injection chamber.
So
for real.
Look at all the emphasis and money that's been spent on the damage from secondhand smoke and the risk from secondhand smoke. This sounds to me like it could be every bit as bad, if not worse, than secondhand smoke.
Well, it's all about information and research. In 1904 is when the water treatment industry in the entire nation went to chlorine. It did kill typhoid. It killed cholera. It is a very, very strong and effective pesticide. It is labeled by the EPA as a pesticide. So when we add chlorine to the water, it does do what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately, when it enters our home, it doesn't magically turn off. It doesn't say, this is a human, I'm going to stop.
Got it. So what we really are looking at here in many respects is the only solution to this is what I would call like a point-of-use precaution. In other words, at the point that the water enters the home, we've got to take our own measures to protect ourselves and our family. We can't depend on our government to do it. And you know what? A lot of our listeners out there would probably feel that is it our government's responsibility to make sure that we're drinking the best possible quality water that we can, or is it the individual's responsibility? And that's a good question. In other words, the government's putting the chlorine in there to keep us from dying from typhoid or whatever it might be, right?
Right.
But the bottom line is once that water makes it to your home, maybe it is our responsibility. I don't want to lay this all on the government, for goodness sake. You know, let's talk about individuals' responsibility. Let's go to a call here, if we may.
So my understanding, too, it attacks the thyroid.
What attacks the thyroid? What's attacking the thyroid?
I work over at Whole Foods, and, a lot of people are having thyroid problems. So my question is this. Why are we allowing these things to be put in our water? I received a notification the other day from, whoever was the water, whatever it is, and they said, just to let you know that the water that we have here is the best water there is. And I'm thinking, you lie.
No, who told you that?
It was just a notification that I received in the mail.
Okay, well, let's have Trent respond to that. Two things. And, Sandy, you'd asked me off the air, what can we do about it? Not just why, but what can we do about it to protect ourselves? Let's take those questions to Trent. Go ahead.
Hang on a second, because I remember years ago, before they put fluoride in, we were handing out notices that said we don't want fluoride in the water, but they did it anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The thing about fluoride is it's not a law. Any municipality can decide to do it. They don't even have to get approval for it. But as educated citizens, we can take action to get the fluoride out of the water. It's as simple as turning a valve off. So the scary thing, Mark Twain said, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. That's what gets you into trouble. And so many people believe that fluoride is an asset, that it's good in the water supply.
Right.
That chlorine is. There are alternative methods to that, but here's
that's what they've been told, though. And who's spreading the rumor of untruth?
Well, go to my website at h2oresearch.org and go under our findings page, and there's some really good videos there that you can watch that'll educate you. There's some short ones and there's some long ones.
I want to pass this on to other people because not everybody listens here to the radio station.
So the research that we have found, my firm, we're a professional water research, water consulting, and water testing firm. Our goal is so that people will call us, go to our website, fill out the form on the home page. We'll come to your home, we'll test your water, and we'll educate you. No cost. You'll get the immediate test results for free. And I can tell you that that if you were to send your water into a lab, you'd spend between $75 and $150 for what real lab testing we do for free.
Now, let me ask you a question, too. I have water filters, and we use filtered water. Does that take out the chlorine and the fluoride?
The answer to that is yes and no. I don't know what filters you have, but we could test that for you and educate you. On the consulting side of our firm, we have done independent research, independent field studies, and I've actually purchased dozens of different water treatment systems, put them in my own home, field tested them. I know which ones are good, which ones are okay, and which ones are stink you want to run from.
You've got all kinds of manufacturers out there that have their name on different products. You can be dealing with a sediment filter. You can be dealing with a carbon filter.
Right.
Yeah, and then there's different grades of filters out there in the industry, right? So
and then one sticker might differ from another. It's lipstick and rouge on the outside. What matters is what's inside it.
So Trent, you'll come out to an individual's home, test their water, put it through this stringent testing procedure that if they paid for themselves $75 to $150, you'll do it for free for them.
That's right.
Okay, and can you also give them advice?
Give me the website again.
What? Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, our website is H2O, and it's the letter O, H2Oresearch.org. And right there on the home page, you can just fill out the request for a free water analysis. And not only that, the interactive research that we do, we are compiling real data, real research, so that we can go to the city council and say, look, based on the clients that we've met and done this free interactive research with, here are their opinions.
Get this crap out of the water.
That's right.
All right, you guys, we're going to take another call. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show today. Sandy, I want to thank you. Good call. Good stuff. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Hope to meet you soon, Sandy.
Okay, let's go to Larry. Larry, you're on live. Thanks for your patience. What's on your mind, man?
Well, I use camel filters myself. Hey, they're spraying the skies right now with them chemtrails.
Are they? Well, that's no surprise.
That's why I always sound so weird, It bothers my sinuses and stuff.
It does bother my sinuses too, Larry. I appreciate that. What's your question about water, man?
Well, they're putting more, the NSA building down there, they're dumping more fluoride or fluorine in our water to keep us calm around here so we won't ever object to their facility. But there was a fluoride spill or fluorine spill just the other day. I think it was in Davis or Weaver County. They were putting it in the water supply, and they had to go to the hospital. They had their hazmat suits on, but still put them in the hospital.
Wow.
So
this is serious stuff we're dealing with here. We can't be taking this lightly.
It's not poison, is it?
Yeah, no, not at all.
But that pond that they used to brag about out at Kennecott's Daybreak thing.
Yeah.
Well, it killed the fish. They don't talk about it anymore, do they?
No. Isn't it interesting how those things get swept under the carpet?
Well, and over into Daybreak, when you move in, you have to actually sign a waiver that you cannot sue anybody on any waterborne diseases that can cause you to have any kind of a disease, and you cannot plant anything in the soil and then eat it.
Like tomatoes or anything. Really, you can't grow a garden there.
That's right, and you're not allowed to swim in the water out there.
That is enough to I wouldn't move out there just for that reason.
Or if your children's develop tumors on their back or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Sign the waiver.
There you go. Larry, got to get in another call. Thank you, man.
All right.
Appreciate it. All right, one more call. Caller, welcome to the show. You're on the phone with Trent Spafford from H2OResearch.org.
What is your opinion about the filtered water that we can buy at some of the health stores?
Great
where
question.
You fill your own bottle.
Yeah, that's
it says on the on their brochures that it takes the fluoride. What's your opinion?
Great question. Different bottled water manufacturers treat their water differently. We've tested all kinds of different brands of bottled water, from Arrowhead to Aquafina to Dasani, you name it, Fuji water. And depending on how a treatment, the actual manufacturer treats it, will determine what it is removed. There are some bottled water companies that literally just take water through a simple carbon filter, remove the chlorine from the city water, and then bottle it.
If I may, I was reading an article recently. Maybe you can confirm this. Bear with me just 1 second. Maybe you can confirm this. By law, they can use potable water, fill up a gallon jug, label it drinking water, and they can sell it as though it had gone through some type of filtration system, as long as they don't disclose it was, reverse osmosis or distilled, that type of thing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So we could be paying as much for a gallon of water as we used to be for gas at one time. Hey, just real quick, guy. Yeah, we're about out of time.
I was just saying, this is the water that you fill your own bottle, and it's in some of the health stores.
Right. So it's going through some type of filtration
reverse
system.
Osmosis and so on and so forth.
That's a good question. So the question is, can you really trust bottled water manufacturers or these water-to-go stores? And the answer is yes. My recommendation, though, is to do it for yourself. The consulting that we do, we actually educate people on how it doesn't matter what water is coming into your home, you can handle it there on site for pennies per gallon, no delivery, no jugs, no contamination. You can use the same technology that Aquafina, which is the best water to buy on the market, in my opinion. You can have the same technology in your home that Aquafina has at pennies per gallon and use it for everything.
Man, I'll tell you what, if you were talking gasoline today, your phone would be ringing off the hook. Pennies per gallon for gas. But the bottom line is, bottled water is expensive. Evian is like $5 a gallon, $6 a gallon.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's that you fill yourself anywhere from 25 cents to 40 cents a gallon.
Right.
At the health stores.
Right, yeah. I know what you're talking about. But the other thing that I'm thinking about is, Trent, you're still showering in that same water that's coming into your home.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. Okay, Trent, how do we get in touch with you? Is there a phone number that our listeners can call you at?
Yeah, you can call me at 801-301-3387. That's on my website, 801-301-3387, or go to my website, H2O, and that's the letter O, like water, H2Oresearch.org. And, in conclusion, it's just we don't know what we don't know, and that's our firm's job, is to educate people so that you have some options, you have some choices.
Okay, we're out of time, my friend. One more time, the number 301-3387.